What if you were never meant to fit in? What if everything you've been through, every betrayal, every breakdown, every dark night of the soul was not a detour, but a deliberate design, a sacred blueprint written into your soul before you were even born? Most people don't talk about this because most people are not ready to hear it. God doesn't send His chosen ones to walk through life with ease. He doesn't crown them with comfort. He doesn't wrap them in perfection. He hides something deeper inside of them, dark powers, not evil but raw, primal, untamed forces that are forged in fire, sharpened through isolation, and only revealed once the soul has proven it can carry the weight. We've all heard the stories of light workers, of healers, of those touched by the divine. But what they don't tell you is that the brightest light comes from the deepest darkness. That those chosen by God are not always soft-spoken, sweet, or socially acceptable. Sometimes they're the ones who've lived through hell and didn't die in it. Sometimes they're the ones who were rejected by the very people they tried to save. Sometimes they're the ones who felt cursed, not blessed until one day they realized the curse was the blessing in disguise. So why does God hide dark powers in His chosen ones? Because the world doesn't need more polished spirituality. It doesn't need more pretense. It needs truth. And truth is messy. Truth offends. Truth shatters illusions. That's why the true chosen ones are not sent to comfort the world, they're sent to disrupt it. To tear down the false kingdoms and rebuild something sacred from the rubble. But to do that, they must carry powers that others can't even understand. The first dark power is divine rage. You've felt it before, the fire in your chest when you see injustice, the heat in your blood when someone tries to silence truth. The world teaches us that anger is dangerous, that it must be suppressed. But divine rage is not about destruction, it's about protection. It's the power that fuels revolutions, that defends innocence, that sets boundaries where there have never been any. God gives His chosen ones this fire because they are meant to be warriors of truth, not passive observers, but sacred disruptors. And the question is, what have you been too afraid to burn down, even though your soul knows it's a lie? The second dark power is isolation. Not loneliness, isolation. The chosen ones are often pulled away from the crowd, not because they are being punished, but because they are being prepared. You can't hear the voice of God in the noise. You can't receive divine downloads when you're addicted to external validation. So He takes you into the wilderness, into the silence, into the void. And there in the stillness you begin to shed the false self. You start to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And it's in that solitude that the next power begins to awaken. Vision. Vision is not just about seeing the future, it's about seeing through illusion. Chosen ones are gifted with a kind of spiritual sight that allows them to perceive what others cannot. You see the patterns behind people's words. You feel the energy behind their smiles. You sense the storm before it arrives. And that's not paranoia, that's prophecy in disguise. But this gift can feel like a curse if you don't trust it, because the world will call you crazy before they call you visionary. So here's the deeper question. How many times have you silenced your sight to make others comfortable? The fourth dark power is emotional depth. The chosen ones don't feel like everyone else. When they grieve, it's soul deep. When they love, it's all-consuming. When they're betrayed, it breaks something ancient inside of them. But this emotional intensity isn't weakness, it's alchemy. It's the capacity to transform pain into power, to turn heartbreak into wisdom. It's why the chosen ones make such powerful healers, artists, and guides. Because they felt it all and they survived. They've held the weight of worlds in their chest and still chose to love again. That's not fragility, that's divine resilience. But with emotional depth comes the fifth power, shadow attraction. The chosen ones often attract the broken, the wounded, the toxic, not because they're weak, but because their light activates hidden shadows in others. Your energy exposes what people are hiding from themselves. And while they may be drawn to you, they may also try to destroy you. Not out of hatred, but out of fear. You become a mirror they didn't ask for. And that's why you've been betrayed by those who claim to love you. That's why you've been scapegoated, misunderstood, and attacked. Not because you're wrong, but because you see too much, feel too much, shine too much. So here's the question that may sting. Are you still trying to save those who are committed to misunderstanding you? The sixth dark power is spiritual rebellion. Chosen ones rarely fit into traditional systems, not religion, not politics, not culture. They're born with a blueprint that doesn't match the matrix, and that's why they question everything, why they break rules, why they challenge authority. Because their soul remembers a higher law, a divine order that cannot be controlled or contained. That rebellion is not defiance, it's remembrance. The chosen ones are not here to follow, they're here to break the mold. But that comes at a cost, being labeled the black sheep, the heretic, the outsider. And yet, deep down, haven't you always known you were never meant to blend in? And the seventh power, the one God guards most fiercely, is creation through destruction. The ability to tear down illusions, systems, relationships, identities, even parts of yourself, not out of malice, but out of divine necessity. You carry the power of endings, and in those endings you birth new beginnings. This is the most misunderstood gift, the power to end chapters ruthlessly, knowing that something greater is waiting. And yet, many chosen ones fear this power. They cling to what's dying, afraid to let it go. But the truth is, you cannot resurrect what you refuse to bury. So now, let me ask you something no one else will. Which of these powers have you been denying? And what would happen if you finally embraced them?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
When God places power inside you, especially dark, primal, spiritual power, He does not hand you an instruction manual. He doesn't sit you down and explain how to wield it, how to protect others from it, how to protect yourself from misusing it. Instead, He lets you feel it. He lets you carry it raw, unfiltered, untamed, so that you first learn what it can destroy before you ever learn what it can create. That's why many of us, when we first awaken to our gifts, go through a phase of chaos. Not because we are evil or immature, but because we are fire made flesh, and no one ever taught us how to hold it without burning down everything we touch. Think about it. How many times have you spoken a truth that shattered someone's illusion and watched them recoil as if you attacked them? How many times did your presence alone cause others to feel exposed, intimidated, or even enraged, and you didn't even say a word? This is the fire within. It is not loud by nature, but it is absolute. It is the frequency of no compromise, no deception, no games. And when it shines through you, it doesn't just light the room, it incinerates the masks in it. That's why you've been called too much. That's why you've been asked to dim, to soften, to be nicer. Not because you were wrong, but because your very being is a spiritual weapon in a world addicted to lies. But if you don't learn how to wield that fire, you will burn yourself out. You will burn bridges that were meant to evolve, not end. You will burn down opportunities that were meant to elevate you, not test you. Power without discipline is destruction. That's why God doesn't just give power, He forges character first. And character is only forged through resistance. So how do we learn to channel these dark powers without becoming consumed by them? First, we have to be honest about them. Radical honesty. Stop pretending you're not angry when you are. Stop acting like you're not powerful just to make others comfortable. Stop playing small to protect people who never protected you. The first step to wielding fire is acknowledging you have it. Denial is what makes it dangerous. Denial is what causes explosions. But acceptance? Acceptance is what transforms fire into lightning, precise, intentional, divine. Next, you have to practice emotional mastery, not suppression mastery. That means learning to sit with your rage without reacting, learning to feel your grief without drowning in it, learning to recognize when your energy is being hijacked by old wounds and unhealed patterns. You are not your triggers, you are the observer of them. And when you can hold space for your own chaos without acting from it, you become sovereign. You become the eye of the storm, not the storm itself. This is where spiritual discipline comes in. Daily practices. Not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you need to stay grounded. You're carrying too much energy, too much intensity, too much truth to walk through this world unprotected. Meditation, breathwork, movement, sacred solitude, these aren't luxuries. They're your anchors. Without them, your power will turn on you. You'll become reactive, overwhelmed, drained. You'll leak energy everywhere. And then you'll wonder why people keep taking from you when in truth, you never learn to seal your field. But even with discipline, there's another layer, discernment. Just because you can destroy doesn't mean you should. Just because you see someone's shadow doesn't mean it's your job to expose it. Just because you feel the pull to speak truth doesn't mean it's always the right moment. The fire within doesn't need to be unleashed constantly. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is hold it. Let it simmer. Let it refine you. Let it teach you patience. Because true power isn't in the expression, it's in the choice. And when you finally realize you don't need to prove anything to anyone, that's when your fire becomes sacred. Now let's talk about something no one wants to admit. Sometimes we use our power to punish, even unconsciously. Sometimes we want people to feel what we felt, to suffer like we suffered, to bleed like we bled. And that desire is not evil, it's human. But if you don't alchemize that pain, if you don't transform it into wisdom, it becomes vengeance. And vengeance, no matter how justified it feels, will poison your spirit more than it heals your wounds. So ask yourself, are you using your power to liberate or to dominate? Are you speaking truth from love or from ego? Are you moving from wisdom or from repressed rage? This is the work, not the glamorous, Instagrammable kind, the real work. The kind where you sit with your own darkness, not to judge it, but to understand it. Because when you understand it, you don't project it. You don't weaponize it. You integrate it. And that's when you become truly dangerous, not to others, but to the systems that were built to keep you asleep. To the illusions that fed off your confusion. To the lies you once believed about who you are. The fire within is not here to destroy your life. It's here to purify it. To burn away what was never truly you, to make space for the version of you that walks with clarity, with power, with divine authority. But only if you're willing to stand in the flame without running, only if you're willing to be transformed. You've been given something rare, something sacred, something that most people will never understand. And it's not your job to make them understand. It's your job to embody it, to protect it, to wield it with humility, to walk through this world as a living altar where spirit and shadow are not enemies but allies. So I ask you now, are you willing to train your fire, or will you let it consume everything you love? There's a question that lives deep in the hearts of the chosen ones, a question too heavy to ask aloud, yet it echoes in the silence of our darkest nights. Why does it hurt so much to carry what God gave me? If I am chosen, if I am truly sent by the divine, why does my life often feel like a battlefield, my heart like a haunted temple? Why do I feel abandoned by the very force that marked me for something greater? Most people will never understand the sacred weight we carry. They see the strength, the wisdom, the energy we radiate, but they never see the nights we spend in spiritual agony, questioning everything, our path, our sanity, even our worth. The truth no one wants to admit is that being chosen doesn't mean being favored. It means being forged. It means being put through fires that others are spared from, not because we are cursed, but because we were built to withstand them. And not only withstand them, but transmute them into something holy. God allows the chosen ones to suffer, not because He enjoys our pain, but because He trusts us with the alchemy of it. He knows we will not waste our wounds. He knows we will not let our suffering rot into bitterness. He knows we will turn even the most unbearable moments into medicine for others. That's why the chosen ones often go through abandonment, betrayal, loss, injustice, and even long seasons of silence where it feels like heaven has turned its face away. These aren't punishments. These are initiations. You learn things in suffering that comfort could never teach you. You learn how to sit with pain without trying to escape it. You learn how to listen to the silence when no answers come. You learn how to walk with broken feet and still speak blessings. And eventually, you learn that your suffering was never meaningless, it was sacred training. Because the deeper your suffering, the deeper your compassion. The more you've been hurt, the more you understand how to hold space for others. You become a vessel for divine empathy. Not because you read books about healing, but because you became the wound and the healer. But this weight, this sacred burden, can feel unbearable if you don't understand why it's there. That's why so many chosen ones fall into despair. They think their suffering is a sign they've failed, that they're not spiritual enough, not faithful enough, not good enough. But the truth is the opposite. The more you are trusted by God, the more you will be tested. Not to break you, but to build you into someone unshakable. To stretch your soul until it can hold kingdoms. Do you really think you could carry divine power without first knowing what it's like to be powerless? And here's where the paradox kicks in. The chosen ones are often made to look weak, lost, even foolish in the eyes of the world. We're hidden in plain sight, stripped of status. Misunderstood, mocked. We're the black sheep, the misfits, the ones who never quite belonged. But that's the divine disguise. Because if the world could recognize what we carry too soon, it would try to exploit it. So God hides us, not to shame us, but to protect the seed until it's ready to bloom. And when it blooms, it doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It simply radiates, quietly, powerfully, authentically. That's the moment when the suffering starts to make sense. When you look back and realize that every heartbreak cracked you open just enough for the light to get in, that every betrayal taught you to trust your inner voice, that every season of silence taught you how to hear God without words. But let's not romanticize it. This life is not easy. There will be days when you want to give it all back, the gifts, the insight, the visions, the calling. You'll beg to be normal. You'll wish you could unsee, unfeel, unknow. And in those moments, you'll wonder if it's worth it. But listen closely. It is. Because you're not just carrying this weight for yourself. You're carrying it for generations, for bloodlines, for timelines. Your healing is not personal, it's ancestral. Your awakening is not just cosmic, it's collective. That's why it feels so hard, because you're not just climbing your own mountain. You're dragging the bones of your lineage up with you. You're clearing karma, breaking patterns, ending cycles that have run for centuries. And you're doing it in a world that doesn't even know how to name the work you're doing. That's why you feel exhausted. That's why you feel like quitting. But that's also why you can't. Because something in you knows this pain has a purpose. This path has a pulse, and it's leading you somewhere holy, even when it feels like hell. So I ask you, can you trust God even when it looks like He's forgotten you? Can you walk through the valley without demanding to see the mountain? Can you carry your sacred weight with the knowing that it is shaping you into someone untouchable, unshakable, unstoppable? The chosen ones are not chosen because they're perfect. They're chosen because they said yes. Not with their words, but with their lives. Every time they got back up. Every time they chose love over revenge. Every time they forgave when it would have been easier to hate. That's the proof. That's the real initiation. Not what you say, but what you endure and still remain open. There comes a moment in the life of every true chosen one where the weight becomes wings, where the silence turns into songs, where the suffering doesn't disappear, but it transforms into something sacred, something sovereign. You don't even feel it at first. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't come with a spotlight. It comes quietly, like a shift in the wind, like the moment the tide turns. You wake up one day and something inside you has snapped into place. You're still you, but you're not the same. And that's when you know God has unleashed you. Unleashed doesn't mean unhinged. It doesn't mean loud, reckless, or impulsive. It means liberated. It means the chains of fear no longer hold you. The weight of others' opinions no longer defines you. The need to explain yourself fades. Your energy becomes a language of its own. Your eyes begin to carry the kind of clarity that makes people nervous. Why? Because you're no longer pretending. You're no longer performing. You've remembered who you are, not just spiritually, but energetically. You've remembered what you came here to do, and here's where it gets real. When God unleashes you, you stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for the timing to be perfect, for the platform to be ready, for the people to support you. You move anyway. You speak anyway. You create anyway. Because you've realized something most never do. You were never meant to fit into the system. You were born to rebuild it. Not with rebellion, but with resonance. Not with force, but with frequency. And yet, this unleashed version of you doesn't seek revenge. That's the beauty of it. You're not out to prove anything. You're not trying to win anymore. Because when God awakens the final layer of your being, you don't need to fight for your place. You become the place. You become the space where truth lives, where healing happens, where illusions collapse. You walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere without lifting a finger. That's not ego. That's embodiment. This is the final awakening, when power no longer excites you, because peace has become your highest currency. When being right no longer matters, because being real is enough. When visibility no longer seduces you, because divine alignment is your compass now. You're not chasing anything. You're not running from anything. You're just here, present, rooted, ready. But God doesn't unleash you just for your own sake. He unleashes you for the collective, because once you're free, you free others. Your presence becomes permission. Your healing becomes a map. Your voice becomes a key that unlocks the cages others didn't even know they were trapped in. And you don't even have to try. That's the miracle. You simply exist in truth, and truth does the work. Still, this phase is not without its challenges. When God unleashes you, people will project onto you more than ever. They'll see your power and try to control it. They'll see your peace and try to disrupt it. They'll feel your clarity and call it arrogance. But you won't flinch. You won't explain. Because you've learned that every reaction you trigger in others is none of your business. You're not here to manage their perception. You're here to carry your mission. And your mission, it's encoded in your energy, in your voice, in your pain, in your joy. It's not always something you say, it's something you are, something you radiate. And when God finally unleashes you, you'll see that the very things that once made you feel cursed, your sensitivity, your intensity, your refusal to settle, they were never flaws. They were features. Spiritual technologies designed to carry a frequency the world desperately needs. So I ask you now, are you ready to stop holding back? Are you ready to stop asking for proof, for signs, for confirmation, and just begin? Because this is the moment. This is the release. You are no longer becoming. Yo ware. Now go walk as if you remember. Because heaven already does.